We'll be discussing Japan today. First, we'll talk about art, culture, and literature. Then we'll move on to more of their social and political stances. And then we'll focus on the ways Japan has influenced Texas. So in their art, culture, and literature, we have a lot of oral traditions from the beginning. The first recorded kind of poetry entry was from the early 8th century. They have Fudoki, which is described as history of geography, products, and folklore. They have Kojiki, which is all their ancient matters. They have Man-yoshu, which is a collection of 10,000 leaves is what this is called. And it is a collection of 4,500 poems from all types of people, from kings, servants, people who don't even matter. There's poems from anybody who's anybody and anybody who's not anybody at all in there. They have a Heian period from 794 to 1185, where they're fascinated with Japanese culture. They actually began adopting a lot of Japanese culture. And in both cultures, if you were well off, you would be well versed in literature, poems. You would be great at dancing, and being culturally influenced or culturally integrated made you kind of top of the food chain. After a long period of self-isolation, their arts were very influential to America. Their literacy was introduced to them by China. They actually got a lot of their culture from China. They based a lot of their culture from things that were coming from China into Japan. They based a lot of their art on plants, animals, abstract things, very naturistic pictures. They were more focused on big picture and not tiny things. With this, being so very interested in nature, they actually became great landscapers. They're very interested in how they build their buildings and what they build around them. They like them to be nice and very abstract. Socially and culturally, they have the highest life expectancy in the world in Japan. They're very healthy. Their language is very similar to Korean and Oceanic languages. A lot of them practice Buddhism, which was introduced by the Chinese in the 6th century. They are Neo-Confucianisms. They value social stability and social morality. They value social utility, not wealth. So you wouldn't have the poor, and this was back then, you wouldn't have poor and wealthy. You'd have those that were socially stable and those that were socially moral, and what their social utility was, they fit that niche. And this is called Tokugama. And now their influence on Texas, they didn't have multiple ways that they influenced Texas. It was more relocated businessmen, Japanese people that came under the government's orders, prisoners that came to work in the farms. So they brought with them farming rice fields. So we began a lot of rice field farming in Texas, in Dallas, in Houston, in San Antonio, south of San Antonio. At first, we wanted them here, and we were okay with the extra culture, and a lot of them were assimilating and weren't really continuing their own traditions. But when it came time to the war, we did not want them anymore. We had Japanese internment camps. We were forcing them to do slavery. We were putting laws on their immigration. We didn't want them here. And if they were here, we wanted them basically tortured, and we couldn't trust them, even though this was after generations. And most of these people that were put in the internment camp were not even born in Japan. Some influences we have is there's a Japanese family that actually established our Japanese tea gardens downtown by the zoo. And then they've also, in Ziegler Park, they have a Japanese tea garden there as well. And they've done gardens all over America. In all the places that they've settled in, they've just kind of brought a little piece of their home to America. And the Japanese that did actually still practice their culture, they would have they had like a social club where they would continue their traditions, their children would meet up, and that was how they would bond over their heritage. But for the most part, most Japanese Americans assimilated, and we do have like an Asian culture event at UTSA. But overall, due to the war, the Japanese didn't have that great of an influence on us, but we still got a lot of wonderful art out of that.